Hey there, and welcome to my YouTube channel, the place where history comes alive. In today's episode, we're diving into one of the most daring and legendary military campaigns of all time, Hannibal Barca's audacious invasion of Rome. Imagine an army of 40,000 men, 9,000 horses, and 37 towering war elephants braving the unforgiving Alps, battling Roman legions, and striking fear into the heart of an empire. From the icy waters of the Trebia River to the blood-soaked fields of Cannae, we'll take you through Hannibal's breathtaking victories and his ultimate showdown against Rome. So, if you love epic tales of war, strategy, and larger-than-life historical figures, you're in the right place. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to share this video with fellow history enthusiasts. Now, let's dive into the extraordinary story of Hannibal Barca, the Elephant General. Imagine this, a vast frozen wilderness. The air is thin, the wind howls like a vengeful spirit, and the ground beneath your feet is a slippery sheet of ice. Now, picture this scene not with modern climbers but with an army of 40,000 men, 9,000 horses, and 37 war elephants. This is not a fantasy. This is history. This is Hannibal's audacious invasion of Rome. Hannibal Barca's march through the Alps remains one of the most extraordinary military feats ever attempted. For over 2 millennia, historians and strategists alike have marveled at the sheer boldness of this undertaking. How could one man lead such a force through the most inhospitable terrain imaginable? The answer lies in the indomitable will of a leader who refused to bow to the might of Rome. Legend has it that when Hannibal was just a boy, his father, Hamilcar Barca, took him to a sacrificial altar and made him swear an oath that would shape his destiny, an oath that would forever pit him against the Roman Republic. The words he spoke were simple yet profound: "I swear that so long as I live, I will never be a friend to Rome." This vow was not one of childish defiance. It was a commitment to a cause that had already cost his people dearly. The First Punic War had ended in a bitter defeat for Carthage. Rome, ever the opportunist, had seized Carthaginian territories, imposed crushing reparations, and asserted itself as the dominant force of the Mediterranean. Hannibal would spend his entire life trying to correct that balance. Years later, as the commander of Carthage's forces in Spain, Hannibal proved to be as brilliant as his father. He expanded Carthaginian control, won decisive victories, and made enemies of Rome. When he laid siege to the city of Saguntum, a Roman ally, Rome declared war. But instead of waiting for the Romans to bring the fight to him, Hannibal chose the path of the bold and the impossible. He would take the fight to Rome itself. This meant crossing the Alps, a feat no army had ever attempted. The journey would be perilous, but if he succeeded, he would strike at the very heart of Rome and catch them off guard. The Romans expected an invasion by sea, but Hannibal had other plans. Before Hannibal could even reach the Alps, he had to navigate another treacherous obstacle, the mighty Rhone River. Wide, swift, and patrolled by hostile Gallic tribes, it seemed impassable. But Hannibal was undeterred. He ordered his men to construct massive rafts to ferry the elephants across. The sight of these enormous creatures, swaying atop wooden platforms as they were pulled across the river, must have been both awe-inspiring and terrifying. While his main force crossed, a detachment of his army launched a surprise attack on the Gallic warriors who had been waiting to ambush them. Chaos erupted on the riverbanks, but Hannibal's forces triumphed. With the Rhone behind them, the true challenge lay ahead: the Alps. The Alps were a merciless monster. The narrow, winding paths clung precariously to sheer cliffs. Avalanches roared down without warning. Men slipped and vanished into the abyss below. The freezing temperatures gnawed at flesh, and supplies dwindled at an alarming rate. Horses lost their footing and plummeted into the depths. The mighty elephants, unaccustomed to the cold, struggled forward, their breath freezing in the air. Yet, Hannibal pressed on. His resolve was unshakable, and his leadership kept his army moving forward. Starvation and exhaustion thinned their ranks, but turning back was not an option. Hannibal inspired his men with fiery speeches, reminding them that beyond these mountains lay the rich lands of Italy, ripe for conquest. The suffering was immense, but so was the reward. Hannibal also faced ambushes from local tribes who saw his army as easy prey. But he turned their attacks into opportunities, luring them into counter-traps and using the terrain to his advantage. By the time he emerged from the Alps, his forces had been battered, but he had done the unthinkable: he had crossed the Alps. Now, Italy lay before him. The Romans, ever confident in their military superiority, sent consul Tiberius Sempronius Longus to crush Hannibal before he could gain a foothold. but they underestimated their opponent. Hannibal lured the Roman army into the frigid waters of the Trebia River. It was winter, and the waters were icy cold. As the Romans waded through, shivering and vulnerable, Hannibal's hidden forces struck. His elephants charged, his cavalry flanked, and his infantry surrounded the enemy. What had started as a confident Roman assault ended in disaster. Thousands of Romans fell that day, and Hannibal had secured his first major victory on Italian soil. Rome, reeling from its defeat, sent another army under consul Gaius Flaminius. Hannibal, always the master of deception, set an ambush at Lake Trasimene. On a foggy morning, the Romans marched through a narrow pass, unaware of the danger lurking in the hills above. Without warning, Hannibal's forces descended upon them. The Roman army had nowhere to run. Trapped between the lake and the hills, they were slaughtered. Over 15,000 Romans perished, their bodies left floating in the lake like lifeless driftwood. But Hannibal's greatest triumph was yet to come. At Cannae, he faced a Roman force nearly twice the size of his own. The Romans, eager for revenge, formed up in their traditional tight formations, confident that their sheer numbers would overwhelm the Carthaginians. Hannibal had other plans. He arranged his troops in a crescent shape, with the weakest forces at the center and the strongest on the flanks. As the Romans pushed forward, the Carthaginian center deliberately fell back, drawing them in deeper and deeper. Then, like a trap snapping shut, Hannibal's cavalry swept in from behind. The Romans were completely encircled. What followed was a massacre. Over 50,000 Romans were cut down in one of the bloodiest battles in history. Hannibal had shattered Rome's armies, humiliated its generals, and terrorized its people. But he could not deliver the final blow. Rome refused to surrender. It adapted, changed tactics, and slowly ground down Hannibal's forces. Hannibal, lacking reinforcements from Carthage, was forced into a war of attrition. Years passed, and the once mighty army that had crossed the Alps dwindled. Rome, under the brilliant leadership of Scipio Africanus, turned the tide. Instead of continuing to fight Hannibal in Italy, Scipio took the war to Carthage. Hannibal was recalled to defend his homeland, leading to the fateful Battle of Zama. There, Hannibal faced an army trained to counter his tactics. The Romans had learned from their defeats. They neutralized his elephants, outmaneuvered his forces, and broke his lines. The dream of conquering Rome was over. Hannibal spent the rest of his life as a fugitive, always one step ahead of his enemies. Rome hunted him relentlessly, fearing that as long as he lived, he would remain a threat. Eventually, cornered and facing capture, Hannibal took his own life rather than fall into Roman hands. But his name, his legend, endured. Hannibal Barca, the elephant general, a man who defied the odds, challenged an empire, and changed the course of history. His story is one of courage, cunning, and unyielding determination. And it is a story that will never be forgotten. And that, my friends, is the incredible story of Hannibal Barca, the elephant general, a man whose brilliance and boldness shook the mighty Roman Republic to its core. Though he couldn't deliver the final blow, his daring tactics and legendary victories changed the face of warfare forever. If you enjoyed this epic journey through history, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on more thrilling stories from the past. And if you know someone who loves history as much as you do, share this video and let them experience the legend of Hannibal too. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and keep exploring the epic tales of history.